I did all my laughing during the countdown, so I think it's out of my system. Anyways, guys, welcome to another. I'm acting like it's my first day. Hey, everybody, welcome.
What's new?
I remember our first day, man. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was fun.
I'm wearing the shirt when the first day that I came on was AC/DC.
Ooh.
Let me see.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't remember what I was wearing when you guys first interviewed me, in all honesty. I'd have to look.
All right. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I of course am your host, Decon. Can I redo that, please? Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Decon, here with a very, very mysterious.
And here with the one and the only
Messy Jessie, and I am here with the lovely and beautiful Ash.
The Oracle.
Yay!
When did you guys switch roles?
We didn't switch roles. Why are you so on that?
What? Do what?
I get
When
it.
did they switch roles?
Yeah, no, we're not doing that because then I'll be all screwed up when I have to introduce. Nope.
No, that's not even what the hell I was referring to. But how was your guys'
I know what you're referring
weekend?
to. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was good. Tomorrow night we have our investigation for our paranormal class at ISU, so I'm jazzed. I'm hoping that the storm kind of lets up by tomorrow mid-morning and we can get to our investigation. So prepping for that. That's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Oh, anything?
I've been doing too many dances for snow.
Probably did.
You can stop now, Jess.
A snow dance?
I was trying to make it rain.
A snow dance.
Do you think that it's like with rain dances? You know, when the Indians would do rain, do you think one guy was just happened to be dancing out there and it just so happened to rain? And then everybody's like, hey, that guy made it rain with that dance. So then that guy, whenever they're like, make it rain because we need our crops. And then the guy starts dancing, but he's like, oh, you know what, guys? Today's not the day. My back hurts. And he just never did. He only nailed it once. And that guy kind of stayed with that for the rest of his life. I mean, here's what's interesting. So I've been brushing up a lot on my history, and one of my favorite historical figures is Alexander the Great, right? And I've been reading on his father, Philip, and the book I'm reading right now is called King Philip the Great, which is not his title, by the way. It was just King Philip. He was such an interesting guy because a lot of people always portrayed Alexander as if he was like this Greek, and they all portrayed him like there was even a movie out there called Alexander, which is horrible, by the way. So they all portrayed him in like fancy clothes, but he was Macedonian. He was not Greek. Macedonians were, or Macedonians, depending on which translation.
Macaronians.
No,
I like that.
No. So anyway, so these people were like the wild Greeks, right? So they didn't wear like the white or anything like that. They weren't Greek at all. They were Mexican. So they wore like pelts, animal pelts, and all kinds of shit. And they were seen as savage and dirty by the Greeks. They lived north. So anyway, so the interesting thing about King Philip is, so King Philip was a beautiful tactician. The way that he would fight wars, I mean, he developed one of the best armies. His armies defeated the Spartans. He ended up conquering a lot of territory, but also when he picked out his wives, wives plural, he had an interesting taste in women. So he would not. So when you're a king, you want to. Close. So he had taste. So you would pick out like the most, elegant woman or the most delicate woman, right? King Philip had this taste for wild women. So two of his brides wore also animal pelts, and they were from the southern kingdom, from Macedonia. And these women were, yeah, they were pelts, they were dirty, like they were dirty. And he also liked witches, like, so he had two witch wives.
So he liked us three. You're pretty much just describing the three of us ladies on here. But go on.
So
I'll wear the macaroni hat.
Okay, so anyway, you just wait. So Alexander's mother, her name was Olympia. So Olympia was Alexander's mother, right? And the way that it is described, she was described as having really dark red hair, and her hair would cover, like, she was beautiful, but her hair would cover her face, and it says she was dressed in shadows. So she wore black, right? She didn't wear white. She wore black. She was part of a cult called the Dionysus cult. And they practiced shadow magic. And this was dark. They practiced blood magic and all kinds of things. So it says in a lot of the descriptions, especially by Plutarch, he says that she was in her 17th year when King Philip laid eyes on her. So she was 17 years old. So, and it says that she was dark and she had a serpent wrapped around her waist. So he was like, "Oh, I'm taking her." So he ended up taking her, right? And she was an oracle also. So if you're by the order of Dionysus, the way that you did your magic was you would take a snake, and this is part of that cult. You would gut the snake and pour the blood all over your face and let it run down, and then that's how you so that's how you got basically it was blood magic, right? So that's the way that she would do her thing. So anyway, so one of the wild stories was that she was they were in her marriage bed, and Plutarch and Demetrius and Irenaeus. Irenaeus was a great Roman historian, by the way. You guys should check out his stuff. So he was talking about that when he was in the marriage bed, she was waiting for him in his chamber. So he walks in, and this bed is covered in snakes. She had snakes, and it says King Philip was so it said he was so bothered by it that it interrupted his husband thrust. So I guess that he was trying to get, he was thrusting in there in the fucking snakes because they were venomous. So yeah, anyway, so the snakes, right? And there were asps. So these were not corn snakes. These were very venomous snakes. So anyway, so that was one thing. And then there's another story that's told about how one day she was doing her oracle, site. So he goes and he peeks through the door to kind of see what's going on. And it says that she is bent backwards, according to Plutarch. She is bent backwards, and it says she turned her head like an owl. We ever seen an owl turn his head completely around? And then said to him, and this is according to Plutarch, and she said to him, "Cursed be the eye that spieth upon the oracle, for she has not yet seen what Dionysus has to show." So whatever, right? Curse the eye, whatever. So he goes out to campaigning. He goes out to a war, takes an arrow to the eye, and it was the eye. Yeah, it was the eye that he was spying through the door. Took the arrow right in the eye. Didn't die, of course. King Philip wore an eye patch, after that. So this woman, was described, because she was a vile woman. She was very violent. She poisoned the competition to Alexander. She wanted Alexander. She also said that in a vision, she saw that lightning struck her womb, and out of the fire came out the next king, which was Alexander, right? So anyway, what's interesting is that, what you got your girl seemed
She must have ate Taco Bell. That's all I.
I'm paying attention.
Oh, so
I think this
anyways,
is an awesome story.
Damn.
So
I love it.
So anyway, what's awesome is that it's true. Also, she was very calculative. She would murder like the competition to Alexander, but she would also meet with diplomats. And when she would meet with diplomats, or saying, "Well, if you're going to invade this city, I must say that the walls are unclimbable and they cannot be toppled." And then she says to the diplomat, she then leaned over and said, "Well, can money climb these walls?" And then the guy was like, "Yeah, of course." And then he takes gold and he's like, "We'll open the back gate for you." So another, so she was okay. Sorry, guys, I'm nerding out a little bit. So
You are nerding
King,
out.
so King Philip, this is a story where King Philip was drunk, right? And he gets so upset that he gets up and he's going to go shout at Alexander because Alexander is now beginning to. Alexander was 15. He was undermining his father. Like, I don't think this is a good strategy. I don't think you should go to war here. And then the dad with a sword goes to threaten Alexander. He's so drunk, he stumbles and he falls. And then it says, I love this line by Plutarch. It says, and then Olympia's tongue enters the mouth of Alexander, and she says, "Oh, Philip, you are trying to cross and travel through Europe. You cannot even travel from your chair to mine."
Damn. Okay.
Yeah,
That told him.
yeah,
Told him.
horrible. Anyway, so she ended up like
What a good
murdering
woman.
all these people. Yeah, she ended up murdering all these people. Eventually, she was
Get
stoned to death by the families of the people that she murdered. H.G. Wells described her, the guy that wrote War of the Worlds. He described her as a vile woman with nothing but evil in her heart. And I was like, well, that's all women. Anyway, today's show is awesome because it's on EVPs. So let's begin.
Yeah, let's begin. Okay, so
What?
Macaroni hat.
okay, I went through a lot of my videos from Pocatello Paranormal, and I teed up some of the best EVPs, and these are pretty good. I'm saving, of course, the best for last, which was a disembodied voice, but some of these EVPs are really, really good. And yeah, so I have to team up in order of. I have to get my notes up here real quick. All right, the notes over here. Okay. Okay, share, present, share screen. Okay.
I'm excited.
So this investigation right here, we were doing a private residence of a friend of mine actually, and it was a lot of fun. What I don't think my friend realized at the time, let me see if I can make that full screen so we can get rid of the side stuff, was that she's actually a very gifted medium. So the reason why there was a lot of activity in this home, the activity was a lot of their relatives, but there were some spirits there that were not relatives because she is so gifted she would draw them in. So let me play a few of these EVPs. I'm sorry, but it's really hard for me to do this and watch my notes. And okay, so we're gonna do first. Hi, baby.
Hi.
Can you hear it though? That's what I'm worried about. When I play it, can you hear it?
No. Let's see.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard it.
You heard it?
Yeah, play it one more time.
Yep. It plays 3 times. When I do videos, I always put them in 3. So.
Go. Go.
There it is.
Yeah. So that was
It's
pretty
really
cool.
quick.
Oh.
They're quick. Okay. So let me get up to.
It almost sounded like a young girl, not like maybe late teens, 20s, maybe.
Yeah,
She
what's
sounded
really
young to me.
interesting about this investigation is that the mother and the daughter are both incredibly gifted.
That's
And
awesome.
yes, and actually I had them on Speaking of Spirits at one point. So the podcast that we used to do, and they're just incredibly gifted. So it could have been in relation to, I don't think that was a relative, because the relatives that we saw in the home and that we experienced in the home were elderly, like grandma, grandpa kind of things. That sounded young to me. That did. It sounded like a young lady. So, okay. So now we have this moan and whisper.
You got ready? You got ready? Taco Bell. You got ready?
Okay, so yeah,
that moan, that damn, I think that ghost just climaxed.
I could have. Who knows? I don't know what's going on in the spirit world, man.
And he was over there just,
What was really interesting about this investigation, besides the fact that they're very gifted, is that there was somebody, and I can't discuss this part. I can't give names, but there was a person in Pocatello who had taken their own life, and he showed up in this house immediately, and he was in the stairs, and he would hang out in one of the closet spaces downstairs in a bedroom. So it was really interesting. Now, this next EVP, I don't know if they're saying they need to go shower or what's going on, but the word I think is shower.
Okay. Wait, was this in the same house?
Oh, someone's running.
Yes.
Oh, someone's running. Oh, someone's running.
Did you hear it?
I heard it at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very faint, but it was there.
Do it one more time.
Okay, let me back it up here.
Oh, someone's running. Oh, someone's running. Oh, someone's running.
A lot of times our EVPs are over the top of us. When we talk, they talk. So it's
that sounded like a woman. I thought it was gonna be like the same guy, the guy that went, "Oh, I need to get in the shower."
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, let's see. This next one is okay. There's just a couple here on this video. So let me share this. Okay.
Okay. Don't tell me what it's gonna say. I'm gonna shut my eyes.
Okay.
Hopefully, it doesn't call me gay.
Probably will.
Maybe it's saying shroom.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? It's just kind of a wild.
I didn't hear shoe. I heard she.
I heard shroom.
But I heard she, but it was like very drawn out, like
Okay.
She,
This is what I heard. I heard like what I do with my infants when I'm feeding them. The whole.
Yeah. I got that too. I was like, and then I was like, well, maybe it's shroom. I don't know.
Shrooms, man.
Maybe it's a guy from Dazed and Confused, okay?
And what's kind of interesting to me is that we get a lot of whistles and singing. We get a lot of singing EVPs. And nobody's going to be able to hear over that, Decon.
What?
Nobody's going to be able to hear over that. Okay.
We're gonna mute you.
Here we go.
Boy, that sounds like me at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That didn't sound like a whistle. That sounded like play again. That didn't sound like a whistle to me.
It did to me, but I don't know. It's kind of hard. It could be a yoo-hoo kind of sound. I don't know. Okay,
No, let's see.
So
That sounds
Like
like
a little kid crying.
that's what I was gonna say. That sounds like a kid crying. Like when they get that high pitch, just
Whine,
scream.
like a whine.
No, like
No, it
you know,
sounds like that bird.
it does sound like a
There's
bird in a way,
that
but
sounds like that.
this house did not
Well-
have like a bird, a parrot, or anything. Yeah.
well, birds aren't real. No, it sounded like when a kid when he gets hurt or he cries so hard, he does that thing where he's like, oh,
My
Oh,
kids do
yeah.
not sound like that. They just
and they do that.
What was really interesting about
I
this
get that.
particular house is that we kept seeing apparitions of Native Americans walking across the lawn in the
What is-
cameras. Like we're watching the monitors going, oh my God, did you see that? And we're all like huddled around the monitor and we're watching them. It's like this property was on a path that people used. And this property was off Portneuf Road. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And how'd
so
you guys know they
Correct me if
were?
I'm wrong. Didn't the Native Americans have like I don't know if it was a musical instrument or what, but it was
Well, they
it
do
was
have
round,
they do
it
have
was
a flute.
wooden.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't that kind of sound like that?
Actually does. Now that you bring it up, I didn't even put those two together.
Yeah.
How'd you guys know that they were Indians? They
You could
dressed-
see the dress. You could see
Oh.
how they were dressed. You could see like white settlers, but mostly it was Native Americans with their dress, like the way they were dressed.
Yeah.
I was gonna
But when
say,
we
I'm
went
gonna
out
say it.
there, you couldn't see them obviously, and we couldn't get it actually recorded, which was weird because we were seeing it on the monitor through the lens of a camera. We could see them.
So you could were they stumbling?
Wow.
The white settlers.
No, let's say the Indians they were drinking.
You're going to get us kicked off.
Pecan.
No, I'm not.
Hey, but does
No.
that not sound like one of those wooden flute things?
You know what? It really does now that you bring it up because I have one downstairs and
Yeah.
it actually
What are
does.
those called?
They're like a flutophone, but they're a Native
Yeah.
American
What are they
flute.
called?
They're made out of that grass that grows on the swamps and they're dried out.
Like bamboo.
And
Like,
yeah. It's the same species as bamboo.
Yeah.
I believe actually bamboo's a grass. No, yeah, it's the same species as, and they grow and then they dry them out and they're about
yeah,
that big and they just
we-
grow
like
holes in them. Yeah.
shells and all that.
Yeah,
I
like
have
willows.
one
I'm
made
gonna
out
ask
of
my
wood
coworker.
downstairs, and it
Willow
it
reed.
has that flutophone kind of sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh.
yeah, that very well could be. It's called a flute, right?
Mm.
Yeah, flutophone, flute. But they're really cool. I don't know. So that house was really interesting in how that activity happened. And anyway, I can't go into the specifics about exactly where the house is, but it was on Portneuf Road, and that area was the corridor, right? Because you have the gap there, we
Mhm.
call the gap, and it's the corridor for where everybody had to travel on foot.
But that was their main hunting grounds as well.
Yeah.
So it was that's where everybody thinks where we are, like the reservation is where they were. No.
Yeah,
They
no,
were,
everybody was everywhere.
the original Fort
Yeah.
Hall was out in the middle of where the Bottoms is now.
Oh, was it? I didn't know
So,
that. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is that this place was like for native tribes because they would war so much over this region that they say the reason why there was so much there's a lot of sightings of Native American spirits is because there's so much blood in this area because this was a place that was highly contested. For a while there, the Shoshone tribes actually held a big part of this area where we're at. And then eventually when the Comanche came and the Comanche slaughtered them, then they took over this whole area. And then the Utes came along and started basically pushing. And they were just it was like a big war. They were just shoving each other. Eventually the Comanche ended up wiping almost everybody out, But yeah, because they were so good on horseback. I mean, and that was their thing. What's interesting is that the way that the Comanches, the way that they lived their life was they traveled north and south all the time because they were waiting for new settlers to come in so they could slaughter them because they did it for sport. So much so, and here's another thing that's interesting. Sorry, guys, now my brain's going. I'm drinking a lot of caffeine today. So the reason why California, Texas, and New Mexico all belong to the United States and not to Mexico was because the Comanches were so bad that Mexico needed a buffer between the settlers, and they needed a buffer between the settlers and the Indians. So what they would do was they started welcoming Americans into this area so that the Comanche could come in and slaughter them and leave the Mexicans alone, which was a really cool trick. Not cool trick, but the Comanches would tell people that they wanted to convert to their religion. They're like, we want to convert to your religion to bring settlers in to build monasteries, and they would kill everybody. And for sport. So then eventually when the Texas Rangers and all these like hardened mountain men came down, and they're like, you know what, like we're going to declare this place, our land. And they began to fight off the Comanche. And a lot of it was Kit Carson was great. It was a great soldier. And with the revolver, they managed to push up the Comanche. So then when the Comanches would stay clear of this area, Mexico was like, yeah, I think we want our land back now. And then there's where the war with Mexico happened, and they're like, no, you're not getting this land back. So anyway, the point, I went through a rabbit trail, but the excellent thing that people notice is that if you want to get disembodied voices or any type of EVP, mostly they're going to be Native American because of the amount of bloodshed that actually occurred in this area. So you get things like chants, you get sightings, you get whistles, you get all kinds of things.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, we do get some sightings and whistles. I think it's really hard to get Native American EVPs. I don't know, Jess, if it's really, really hard to get any of their language, to get them on video. They have, I mean, when I talk to the Native Americans around here, they don't want an investigation. They don't, even though they have activity, it's really taboo to talk about that kind of stuff. Is that your experience,
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Very much so. It's because they respect. It's a respect and understanding.
Yes. And but where this house was located, there is an old trail, probably 50 feet upslope from the house, a very old trail. And you can tell it was a footpath. And I think it was one of the primary trails that went through the gap.
Yes.
We have an area here called the Gap, where you have Pocatello, the Gap, and then Income. And what's fascinating is the weather just south of the Gap is so much more severe than it is north of the Gap. It's just, but there's that division there, and it's very narrow, and that this house was very close to that. And I think you had a lot of foot traffic and a lot of horse traffic and stagecoaches and everything else coming through there.
Yep. And a good place also to get those EVPs too is even in Massacre Rock State Park.
Oh yeah.
There's been a lot of reports of seeing figures in the rocks and hearing, of course, the legend. I wouldn't say legends, but the water babies. You can hear them down there.
Yeah.
It's just, a lot.
Have you ever done an episode on water babies?
Not yet. I'm wanting to.
Water
That's
babies.
that's an interesting history too. What was going on back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just here. It was in a lot of areas with a lot of
Oh yeah.
Nevada, Pyramid Lake is a huge one.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of legends that were turned around by white folks and misunderstanding of what truly the water babies were. So
yeah, well, geez, that's another whole nother story. Yeah, there's a lot of water baby legends across the so there's a theory out there that it was because there was a couple of tribes that practiced infanticide. So when times got hard, the best solution was you drown your babies or you drown your children. One of the big things that happened was when there was a huge famine and there wasn't enough food to go around. One of the things that the tribes would do is they would look at the children. They're like, okay, which ones are not producing, or will not produce enough. So then they would look and they would kind of like draw straws. And it's like, all right, well, it's your turn to drown your kids. So, and a lot of stories is that when, and here's what's crazy is that in El Salvador, there is stories that are similar to that kind of stuff. So they say that when you're traveling around at night, and if there's a full moon and you hear the sound of a baby crying near a river, they say, don't go near the river because La Ciguanaba is going to come out of the water and drown you. So, and it's almost like the same story with the water babies. Like if you hear the crying and you get close enough, because if we're all honest with each other, if you hear a child crying near a river, your instinct's going to kick in, right?
You would think.
Your instinct's going to, yeah, because you don't know. I mean,
yep.
Yeah, you go and you help and then you drown. What's interesting in Japan, they have a story of a creature called the kappa, and the kappa is seen as having like a turtle shell, and it's got like a water dish on his head, and the only way for you to kill it is for you to get it to spill the water on his head because it's life force. But they say that a kappa will actually imitate the sound of a child, and then you get close and it pulls you in and it drowns you. So
yes, it will.
Damn, water babies. What are the odds, right? That so many different cultures have the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. That's weird. It's crazy.
Okay, so should we continue on with some EVPs?
Yes, I'm ready to hear
No.
some more.
One more question. One more question.
Shit.
Okay. One more question. This is what I was getting at when I was saying. I am. I'm sorry. I'm in a good mood. So when. So why do you think that so many? Do you think it's because of our nature and our leave her alone? Sorry, guys, the dog is trying to get the cat. Do you think that it's because of our nature? We just want to help children. That a lot of whatever is out, like a lot of dark entities or something, purposely take the form, or do you think it's actually spirits of children?
I think it's both.
You think,
a lot. We've run into a lot of spirits of children, but they usually go to families with children.
Yeah.
And they're not, for whatever reason, they can't find their family on the other side. They're alone. So they will go into a home with children to be part of a family, right?
Yeah.
But there are mimics, and mimics are bad. Mimics are always never good.
Yeah, like the Sally house.
Too much. We don't really run into that too much. Not as much
like
as the shows would make you think.
Yeah,
like the Sally house.
Have you run into one though?
Yeah.
I have.
Oh, that gives me GBs.
Yeah.
I ran into an Indian scammer telling his name was Richard Johnson. I don't think that was his real name. Anyways, let's continue.
Okay. So we did, Gate City Coffee in Pocatello asked us to come in. That building is quite old. It did burn down. I mean, all of Pocatello, almost every city burned down at some point, right? But the building did burn and then it was rebuilt, and it was a series of like accountants and all kinds of stuff. But now it's the coffee shop, and if you haven't been, you need to go because it is lovely. And they now have the space next door for all the merchandise. They actually have food in there now, live music. It's quite the place, and I love it. And a shout out to Gate City Coffee. But
yes,
when
merchandising.
When I was first doing this video and I put it together, I didn't hear what I just heard last night when I was going back through all this stuff, trying to assemble some of these EVPs. Now I hear it, and it blew my mind. Because I'm going to play it and see if you hear what I hear, because, oh my God, I'm like, really? Okay. So I remember I did not hear it the first time.
Okay.
So it says a partial sentence, but.
This becomes a burger.
Here.
Espresso.
Did you hear that?
What did that say?
Let me play it again.
Becomes a perfect. Espresso.
What did you hear? I'll do it one more time.
This becomes a perfect. Espresso.
Did you hear
Okay,
what
I-
I heard?
I didn't hear it.
Surprised?
I hear
says-
something, but I can't hear what it says.
It says espresso. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. There are coffee
Okay, play
shops.
that again.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I'll play it again. Okay, because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't hear it the first time I was putting the video together. Okay.
Espresso.
Yeah. Okay.
Espresso.
Oh my
Oh, it's a
goodness.
it's a woman speaking. I thought it was the second voice that sounds kind of off. I was
Hold on.
Espresso.
There.
Espresso.
Espresso. It says espresso, does it not?
I guess I was kind of I thought that voice was like from an investigator talking about
There
the
is an
menu or some shit.
investigator, but it's a very okay. Well, no, actually, the sentence was really quite loud, and I don't think that's any of the investigators. Yeah, I mean that's the thing with if you have guests. One of the things, and we had some guests that night, but you know everybody on the team, you know their voice, so you can rule them out, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the guests, when you're going back through the things, you're like, was that a guest? Was that a guest? But
How-
the espresso is there, and it's faint. But you want me to play it again?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Espresso.
There.
This becomes a perfect. Espresso. This becomes a perfect. Espresso.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So how old is this? How old is this coffee shop?
Well, it's over 100 years old. The building.
Easy, the building.
Do you think, man? Because sometimes you get like I was watching some videos and this guy was talking. It was like an old plantation, and the guy's like, "Well, you can talk into this digital recorder, and you hear the EVP, and it's like digital, like it tries to say what like it didn't understand
Right.
what he was saying, so it like repeats it. So that's why I think that when investigate or something like walk towards my recorder and say this, like these things don't know what you're talking about. So
Right.
in one of the EVPs, it's repeated the phrase back to him, like it said digital recorder, but it said
Right.
it like with a question mark, like
Like,
digit. Like what
Yeah,
are you talking
they
about?
don't know.
Like, what
And
is this?
when we're doing an investigation, we're cognizant that a lot of times they may not know, like our equipment won't hurt them. So we'll show them, like, look, you can touch this piece of equipment and it's not going to hurt.
Did we just lose her sound?
I don't know.
I think we just lost her sound.
Well, oh boy.
Tap your mic again. Tap it
What-
3
what-
times for good luck.
I can't.
The EVPs, they got to her mic, canceled it out.
Can you hear
The
me?
wor-
Back?
Yeah, now we
Okay,
can hear you.
good.
Yeah.
I went out and came back in because something went haywire. Okay.
The safety word is espresso.
Espresso. Okay. All right. So the last one that I'm going to play is a really interesting investigation that we were asked to come in and do at the Stricker Ranch. It's Stricker family had a stagecoach stop, a general store, a livery stable. And they had a a house where people could rent a room overnight and then leave on the stagecoach the next day, right? So it was a whole thing. They had a huge place. It's in Hanson, Idaho, or Kimberly, Idaho. And the Historic Society, the State Historic Society now maintains the site. And they asked us to come in and do an investigation during the summer and then come back for the Halloween event and play the videos and be a part of the Halloween thing. And it was a lot of fun. One of the state historians who knew the family inside out and backwards was with us the whole night. And so that was a lot of fun because she was able to let us know if we were on track, because I try not to get a lot of information. I don't want very much information when we walk in the door. I don't want the team to know too much. I want us to go in as cold as we can to see if what we're getting is on the money, right? Having the historian with us was really fun because as we're doing the investigation, we're coming up with information. She's like, yep. No, maybe not. So it was really helpful. So I'm going to play a series of, I have a whole lot of EVPs from this place, was super active. I'm going to kind of work backwards because I want to save the best for last. So this one, is for whatever reason, we got a ball bouncing. So, yeah, weird, but you can clearly hear it.
Ball bounce.
Okay, yeah, listen to this. So is this Vaughn that we're communicating with? Is this Clyde? Hold on. What was that?
Did you hear that?
I heard it. Something behind me.
It sounded like a ball drop.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's go back. Did you hear it?
Let's play that one more time.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it.
So is this Vaughn that we're communicating with? Is this Clyde?
I heard it.
It's very faint, but you can hear the ball bounce a little bit and then roll.
It sounded like someone dropped it from like a couple inches off the ground and it just went
and then rolled a little bit. Yeah.
Was there a voice before that?
Huh?
Like somebody playing.
No, there was a voice before that before the ball dropped.
Yeah, we're talking. We're asking because we're doing an EVP session, so we're talking. And let me go back to.
You know what that sound reminds me of?
Oh God.
You guys are old. You guys ever played Jacks?
Yes.
You remember the game Jacks?
Yes.
That's exactly what it sounds like. Ba, 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 and then
Yeah, because it was just a little small ball, and yeah. So now this next one was really interesting because we're upstairs. We have a lot of investigators on this investigation, but we use walkie-talkies. We know where everybody's at. I know I've got some people out in the livery stable. Some people were out by the graveyard. There was a general store. Some people were there. So I know where everybody's out throughout the night. And this one sounded like there was a beautiful dining room. And it had like the really high wainscot paneling with a chair rail. But the chair rail was probably 6 feet high. It was really pretty. And then they had these beautiful like dishes up there. It sounded like somebody was walking like with heavy boots. And at one point, it almost sounded like somebody was throwing chairs. But then when you go downstairs, there was nothing out of place. So this is kind of some of the stuff that we heard. Bananas.
Sounds like when I'm pissed off that my kitchen's a mess.
Well, what's weird is we're upstairs because when we're going to get to the disembodied voice in a few minutes here, but we were upstairs. And
what? What's the building? What was
It's
what was the building?
It's an old clapboard farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Play it again.
But there's no central air heat. There's no boiler system in this. So
Mhm.
here we go. Sounds like heavy boot. Things getting moved. Water running.
Lord.
Sounds like water. There was 4 of us
Wow.
upstairs. We were all stationary. And we're like, what
That's just
the?
a lot.
It was loud.
That man.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Okay, so we had, I'm working my way backwards because I'm going to save the best for last, but this is.
You know what that
Hmm?
sounded like to me?
Hmm.
Somebody leatherworking. So
Oh.
when you're leatherworking, you take a piece of leather, you extend it, you wet it, then you slap it down, and sometimes if it's beginning to kind of take like a weird shape, you take a mallet of some kind and you hit it, and you slap it down because you want it to fully stretch out, and then you hit it. So it's kind of like slaps and then a heavy thump and then the water, like they're, kind of getting it wet again, then re-slapping it down.
Oh, that makes sense.
That makes sense, but back in Stricker days, they wouldn't have had running water like that. They would have had to use a
Unless you had
hand-
a basin, and then you kind of
Yeah, that's
sit it
true.
and they angle and they go
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
down. Yeah,
That could-
and then that's
yeah,
what you're
well,
rolling it
I
on.
mean, the Stricker family, I mean, they also, well, there's a story I'll tell you in a minute. So here we go to. You hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little, and we get that a lot. We get little
Ooh.
children's voices.
Yeah.
It's really quite interesting. Okay, let's go back to.
It's probably the same children playing the jacks.
Maybe, right?
Ah, Jess.
See, this is why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, let's see. Let me go back to the bell. Wait, sorry. Hear it? Really, really faint.
Camille. Or
Really
like the
faint.
bell for the door.
Maybe, or just a little. I don't know, sir. I don't know if they
Like a
would've
bell
had-
for the door because they
It
had the
Yeah,
store.
bicycle bell.
Yeah, it could have been. All right.
On old bikes, the little bells that they would have.
On top of the door, so when you opened it, it
Yeah.
did the ring.
Little
Yeah,
ding.
ding.
Or maybe it's somebody spitting into a spittoon. Bing!
Gross.
Okay, so this could be a lady singing. Yeah.
That could be someone on the receiving end of the first EVP with the guy going, "Ugh."
Could be. All right. Now, the best one is okay. So,
Oh, I'm so ready.
huh?
I'm so ready. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Okay, so to prep this video, the lady in the blonde right here, she's the historian. I'm here when I actually had hair. And
What?
we're doing an EVP session, and we were using the flashlight technique where turn it on for yes, turn it off for no. And Clyde Stricker. I think he was the youngest member of the Stricker family,
Mhm.
and he was kind of the black sheep. He ran away from home because he wanted to be a cowboy, right? But it didn't last long, and he came home. But he was
Aw.
kind of a black sheep of the family. That is actually his saddle right here on his bed. This was actually his bed. Okay.
Oh,
And
cool.
that was his saddle. And this guy he was kind of an ornery little guy, and I liked him. I like him a lot. And
Little guy.
I noticed what?
Little guy.
Well, I don't know. Anyway,
Was he a midget?
I have no idea. Anyway, I noticed that the batteries, and one of the things you'll notice on an investigation is that the batteries in your equipment will get drained with activity. And we had just put brand new batteries in everything. We were only, if you notice, we were about a minute and a half into working in Clyde's room, because that's where the camera is on this. And the batteries are already going dead. And I'm watching this flashlight, and he's really responsive with us. And I even had asked the historian to trip him up, like ask something that you know is false and see if he hits on it. And he wouldn't. I mean, he was like, it was Clyde, because she would ask him stuff and he was on it. He was on it. And he wasn't being misled. And so I'm looking at the flashlight batteries. I'm like, you're going dead. They're going dead. And then I just watched it. Boom, the flashlight just went off and it just wouldn't come back on again. And he actually says, this is audible. Okay. He says, why is Clyde's room off, or something like that? Listen to it.
Look at the orb that you have too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yes.
Wasn't that you?
No, I heard it too.
Wow. Lynn?
Look at that hair.
I know, right? I had hair. It was
Mark the time, 10:28.
10:28. It was a male voice.
I heard something. I don't know what it was.
It was almost a sentence. Did you hear that? Why is Clyde's room off? I think he doesn't know the word flashlight. They didn't have him then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's his voice. It's a voice. It's a male's voice. Why is Clyde's room off? I'll play it again.
That is amazing.
And it's crazy when he says it.
Almost a sentence. And then Lynn, who was, she was sitting out there, but she wasn't feeling good that night. She was monitoring our videos, and she didn't hear a thing. I'm like, dude, you really didn't hear that? Everybody else heard it. Even the investigator downstairs watching the monitors heard it. So
wow.
Here we go.
And it's crazy because when he talks, you can see the orb.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's definitely like not our voice. So
no. And you could tell. It's Clyde. It takes a lot of energy for them.
There was confusion in the voice too.
Yeah, he was confused. He was like questioning, and I was watching that bloody flashlight going, oh, we're going to lose him. Because a lot of times when you have a lot of interaction like that, and then your equipment fails, you lose him.
Yeah, because they don't have that energy anymore to feed off of.
Yeah.
Oh, that was crazy. That gave me chills.
So,
if
you're out in Kimberly, go to Stricker Ranch. You can go through the house, take your own equipment, and walk through it.
I'm gonna skip work tomorrow and go.
It's too cold out.
So, that's one of our EVPs. Oh, there she is, Mama Dog.
Mama Dog.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Get out of here. Yeah.
Aww.
Anyway, do you know that leave the cat alone. Sorry. Did you know that 8 years ago, when you first came on my show, and I said, if you have any tips for everyone out there, what would be the number one thing? And then you said, keep extra batteries, because in some places they'll just drain them, and keep them away from the investigation. Keep out in a car, keep them somewhere, because if you have them on you, like in your pocket, they're taking that. They're draining that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I always found that to be interesting, because you watch other shows that are normal shows, and there are people, like with the recorder, like my recorder's dead, and then they're like, oh man, and everybody's frustrated. Who has extra batteries? And it's like, I have somebody, put them in, and they're like, these are dead too. And then I always remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought
keep them in the car. Keep them in the car, away from the building.
I thought you were gonna do like a Zach bag, and it's like, hey, bro, I'm being affected right now.
The
Damn.
players are affected right now, bro.
So I'll tell you a little tiny story about what happened during the Halloween event out there. So they do stage the house for a Halloween event. And there's a lot of tricks that they do, you know.
Yeah.
But I had the dining room, and it was one of the last stops. They do a tour, and they take people in groups of like 10, right? And it was like we did 2 weekends in a row out there, and I think this was the last group of the last night. And the last stop is the dining room. And I was telling them, and I was letting them hear this EVP of the dining room being just torn apart. And because it's a historic building, you can't have real candles. So we have those little battery operated tea lights everywhere. And I had them up on the chair rail to give enough illumination to make it look a little spooky in there, right? And there was somebody hidden under a table so that they could pop out and scare everybody. And that was just, that was the prop, the gag for that room.
I would love to be that person.
Yeah. But by then, because it's the last
not
room,
around me.
Did it. Okay. But what was really cool, yeah, hey, Jess, was the last, they had asked me some questions about the EVPs, and then one of those tea lights went bing across the room. And they went, oh, that's really cool. Where's the fishing line? And I'm like, there's no fishing line. And they're like, yeah, right. And I'm like, look, there's no fishing line. They picked it up. They examined it. They're like looking around. I said, that was not fishing line, guys. So that was the last part of the tour for the last night. And that was pretty cool.
That's
Have you? Do you think that whenever one of these famous investigators, like let's say Zach Baggins, if he ever goes somewhere and somebody okay, guys, come on, and like somebody very recently died and they were a fan, do you think they would have ever captured an EVP where that person's like, I love you? And he's like, you hear that, bro?
No.
You know, no.
No one loves him.
No one likes
I do.
No one likes him.
Why?
Nobody like I do.
No one loves him.
I call him Scooby Douche.
I know. Yeah, I know. I have a really hard time not saying that everywhere. Have y'all ever heard Zach tell the candy story that happened on one of the investigations? No, I have not. I have not.
I feel like
bro, this candy's affected. Oh man. Also, Zach Nutsack Baggins.
No.
We think it'd be cool to go to like one of these. No, man, come on. I think it'd be cool to go to one of these historical places, like go to Greece. You know, go to Greece and then just walk around with a recorder and like ask questions. You know, and kind of see if you can get something in Greek. You know what? Here's something that probably had nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. Also, what I heard was that what I read was that, did you guys know that Shaka Zulu had a very small member and between his leg, and then that's what motivated him, because back then no one wore pants in his region, so people would make fun of him for it. So that's what also turned him like extra aggressive, and he wanted to conquer everything. So a lot of people are saying that maybe Shaka Zulu has such an inferiority complex because of his small, I'm just going to say it, because of his small penis, that actually drove him to conquer so much. And I was like, see, everybody, small penises are cool.
Okay, so now we are really losing our show.
Talking about candy.
Anyways, going back to what I was saying, was do you think that do you think that by going to one of these places like in Greece, and if you were to have like historical like dress like those times that maybe if you learn some Greek and you try to have a conversation with somebody, you can get somebody to respond to you, like maybe something's wandering around, like you can act like a diplomat and ask a question, because if you were of high enough status, and if you were of high enough, they could tell by your dress. So if somebody addressed you, you were supposed to, by force, reply. If somebody said good morning to you, and if they were a diplomat, by law, you had to, say good morning to you, sir. Like, you think it'd be dressed like you were like so high up there, and you walk around with a tape. No, listen. And you walk around with like a recorder and you're saying like good morning randomly. Like maybe these people are like, oh shit, there's a diplomat. You know, like good morning. If you can get like people trying, you know what I'm trying to say?
Well, so that's considered a trigger object, like a trigger.
Yeah.
We use that on investigations. We had talked about when we walked in the room, I was admiring the saddle. And I think that he was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, like she likes my saddle because I you know, I have horses and I've ridden on my horse. I'm like, that's a really cool saddle, and I was admiring the tooling on it and everything else, and maybe that's why he was so excited to talk to us, because he's like, oh wow, that's cool.
Trigger objects. I remember so years ago, I think it was again, I go back to 8 years ago, we were having this conversation about they went to this place where it was like a blacksmith's, you know, business, and they were trying to, and apparently this guy was shot and killed because somebody mistook him for someone else. Because they were dirty, right? They were covered, and then he was like, "Oh, you shot the wrong guy. This is the guy that's messing around with your wife." Like, oh, geez, you know. So anyway, so this guy was shot, and they were trying to get this guy to respond, you know, and they were doing all kinds of things like, "Hello, are you here? Hello, are you blah blah blah?" And they couldn't get him to respond at all. And then this guy's like, "I have an idea." So I was like, "What's your idea?" So he goes, he leaves, and then he comes back and he brings a knife and he sets it down on the thing, and then the question said, it said, "How much?" I think that's the response that it got in the EVP, and it was like, how much? And they're like, see, there it is. Yeah. And it was because these people were asking questions and he probably didn't want to answer. But the moment you bring an object that he's probably like, those people were very devoted to their craft. So probably he saw something cool, like a knife, like a design he's never seen. So he probably wanted to buy it, or maybe he was offering to repair it. Maybe he was like whatever. Right. So I think that was the very first time I hered the word trigger object. And yeah, it was from you guys. You guys are like, oh, that's called a trigger object. And you guys were talking about how sometimes you'll bring stuff to kind of like, if there's kids in a place or something like that, you might bring like a small toy or something.
We bring toys, and Hot Wheels, stuff like that. Try to get them to interact with us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been investigating? Like, would you say?
Okay.
Back in 1925.
48
back
years.
When I was down. Jeez. But also you're
so and I just had a question asked about the opinion on spirit boxes or an ovulus, and with word banks, and the spirits can pick fun. So anyway, spirits are using a programmed piece of machinery to pick out words. And you know what, Cherub, I don't have a whole lot of experience with the ovulus. I've heard them. My friends have used them. I think that sometimes they're useful, especially if it's like confirmation. I call it another line of evidence, right? Like if a word pops into Jesse's head on an investigation, and she's got the word, you know, Leroy on an investigation, and then the ovulus says Leroy, then cool, another line of evidence that maybe it's Leroy, right? I have a hard time believing a lot of these devices, like solely, like if it's the only thing, there's no other piece of information that you're getting with it, then I'm careful with it.
Yeah.
That's interesting too, that you bring up Jesse there. So you would go into a location and you would actually hear certain words in your head.
Yep, they come right in, like the name, the description.
I don't even have to be at the location. I mean, they've done an investigation at Fraser, and a voice came through and said, "Where's Jess?"
Yeah. Yep, it did. Where's Jess?
Here's something that's interesting, that now that we're talking about something like this. So there was a case that happened, I believe it was in the 90s, and this person died, right? This person ended up dying, and they say it was a grease fire, and this person was dead, right? And then one day they're investigating this house, and they ended up getting the voice, you know, kerosene, like they poured kerosene on me. So, and it was an elderly woman. So then they're like, it's crazy. And then either the daughter or the granddaughter of the person whose house they were investigating, they're like, this is not sitting with me, blah blah blah. So they went and ended up, reopening up the investigation, and they realized that the substance that was all over the body, it wasn't grease. Somebody actually set this person on fire. They poured kerosene on them, and then they were able to figure out that it was one of the groundskeepers. One of the groundskeeper had, they found, I guess that they ended up finding that he was stealing, and this person caught him in the act, and he confessed that he didn't know what he was doing and he didn't know what to do, so he panicked and he poured kerosene on this person and set her on fire.
Jesus.
And that's insane. You like damn. And they were saying that it was a grease. She might have been cooking. She might have poured grease on herself and set herself on fire by the time they found her. And then that's what they ruled it. And they're like, oh, accidental death through a burning, And it was this person that's like, no, I'm getting the word kerosene or set me on fire. And then they ended up opening it up, and it's like, damn, this person, somebody burned them, So
we'll do another show. We'll do another show of video clips of things that have happened on investigations instead of the EVPs. We did a one in Idaho Falls like 10 years ago, and the family knew that there was a child in the house that wasn't a living child. It was, and that's what children find children to hang out with.
Yes.
And they had a little boy, but this was a little girl. And so we're talking with her, and we catch her name. She gives us her name, and then she said she died in a fire. Like the information we were getting with dowsing rods and everything else, the mediums, but we didn't have any information on this house. I mean, it's really hard to get information on a house. Business is a little easier. Houses are hard. So this family went out after the investigation and started talking to some of the people in the neighborhood that have lived there forever, like generations. And they said, do you know anybody that lived in this house? And after the third or fourth ask, they said, actually, yeah, we remember this family quite well. They, the father and the daughter died in a car wreck that the car caught on fire.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's sad.
So that was months after the investigation. They got a hold of me and said, you're not going to believe what we found out. Somebody said, how do you determine if it's an actual child or something mimicking? It's pretty easy, Cherub. A child is a child. A mimic, you feel before you even walk in the house. You can tell it's not a child.
Yes.
And usually mimics are also mimicking the people's voices. So like you'll hear your spouse's, doppelganger voice. You'll hear somebody call your name, or you'll hear your husband's voice, but he's not home. And you're like, what the, So mimics are mimics, and they're not good.
That was creepy, Jess.
Okay. So if you guys were a mimic and you guys were to imitate me and you guys walk into a house, what would I sound like?
Bacon.
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't mimic your voice, man. I can't do it.
Don't ask me to mimic voices. I cannot.
I can't.
El Salvador.
I guess that. Wow. Did I just say that? Do I have Tourette's? So next up, damn, I've been wanting to do this with you for a while there, SOS. And I think I brought it up several times, and then we kind of quiet, and then we kind of always not done it. But I would like to just like hear the adventures of Dottie, and like the, what I mean, like because that's a long career. You know what I mean? Like and it was just like there's a couple of stories that you told. I think there was a story that you told the second time you had come on my show years and years ago that I fell in love with that story, and it was the story of the Volkswagen ran out of gas. Yeah, Volkswagen ran out of gas.
To do that at some point because there was a lot of stories, and there was a lot.
So yeah, that'll be cool. So okay, let's close the show because I think we've already passed our hour mark here. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Yeah, share the show. Merchant. Yeah, there's merch. There's merch out there. Buy a crappy shirt, a mug. I mean,
God.
if you
Socks
you
for your
want,
feet.
yeah. Anyways, guys, remember to always look both ways when you're, especially if you find yourselves on Nightmare Road.
Woohoo! Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.